German panzer commanders believed their armored formations were invincible against Soviet tanks. They were wrong. On October 6, 1941, at the outskirts of Mtsensk, units from General Heinz Guderian's 2nd Panzer Army faced a force they had ridiculed Colonel Mikhail Kadukov's 4th Tank Brigade, equipped primarily with the new T-34 medium tanks. German doctrine, built on rapid armored thrusts and technical superiority, had delivered victory after victory during the opening months of Operation Barbarossa. Their Panzer III OSV J and Panzer IVF-1 tanks boasted reliability and a track record of smashing Soviet armor, yet German reports recorded only modest losses week after week. That confidence would be their undoing. Over 170 German Panzer IIIs and IVs pressed forward on the approach to Moscow, confident in their experience and technical skill. In their path stood approximately 60 Soviet T-34-76 tanks, nearly all from one brigade under Kadukov. The T-34 fielded a 76 Tum F-34 main gun and sloped armor 45 m thick. Features German intelligence had both noted and dismissed. German tank officers reported they could outmaneuver and outshoot any Russian machine. Yet as the battle began, dozens of German tanks were knocked out in mere hours, the kind of attrition previously thought impossible. Guderian's spearhead stalled as radio reports described unexpected penetrations and catastrophic losses. This reversal was not due to numbers or luck. It was the technical advantage and tactical deployment of the T-34 that rendered German battlefield assumptions obsolete in a single day. The opening at Mtsensk would reveal that belief in superiority could undermine even the best-equipped armies. This is the precise moment where German armored dominance abruptly faltered, setting the stage for a pivotal clash that shaped the Eastern Front. October 6, 1941, 7:30 hours. Generaloberst Heinz Guderian ordered the advance of 2nd Panzer Army towards Mtsensk, situated 85 kilometers southeast of Orel, along the Oka River's western bank. Guderian's objective was clear: seize Mtsensk to maintain the drive towards Moscow. The assault force, over 170 tanks from 4th Panzer Division, including 95 Panzer III OSV, J-50 mm KW K-38L-42 cannon, 30 mm frontal armor, and 43 Panzer IV F-1, short-barreled 75 mm KW K-37L-24 gun, 50 mm armor. Supporting elements comprised mechanized infantry with Est KFZ, 251 half-tracks, and 27 assault guns from Sturmgeschütz Battery 660. Opposing them, Colonel Mikhail Kadukov commanded the Soviet 4th Tank Brigade, assigned to Western Front forces under General Ivan Konov. Kadukov's brigade fielded 57 T-34-76 Model 1941 tanks, 45 mm sloped armor, 76 Tum F-34 gun, diesel engines with 500 HP, reinforced by 21 kV-1 heavy tanks, up to 75 mm armor, dug in on ridges and forested approaches south of Mtsensk. Anti-tank support included 76 divisional guns, positioned to cover narrow crossings and flanking routes along the Oka. German planners expected a swift victory, citing aerial reconnaissance suggesting only scattered Soviet armor and minimal infantry resistance. Reports from previous clashes on September 30 projected low Soviet morale and disorganized lines. The combination of technical reliability, crew experience, and close air support from Stuka squadrons led Guderian's staff to forecast minimal attrition and momentum toward Tula within 48 hours. However, muddy conditions due to autumn rain resulted in limited mobility for wheeled vehicles, with measured depths of mud exceeding 25 centimeters in low ground. The technical advantage of German optical sights was compromised by reduced visibility, fog-limited line of sight to under 300 meters at dawn. Furthermore, intelligence from a captured prisoner on October 5 indicated several new tank models, but underestimated their numbers and armor profiles. Rolling terrain with shallow gullies and dense forest limited maneuver for larger formations and exposed flanks. Bridges over the Oka were intact, but approaches were mined. This challenging geographic and technical environment would shape the engagement as much as numbers or experience. What transpired in the next 12 hours would determine whether Army Group Center's drive on Moscow could continue as planned. At 8:05 hours, the opening German armored thrust began as 4th Panzer Division advanced along the Mtsensk highway, supported by 18 Panzer IV F1s providing suppressive fire. Each vehicle's main gun was loaded with high explosive and armor-piercing rounds, and hull gunners operated 792 MG 34 machine guns. Infantry squads advanced in half-tracks on the right, carrying Kar 98K rifles, MP-40 submachine guns, and Panzerbuch 39 anti-tank rifles. The main road, 7 meters wide, was bounded by muddy verges that limited off-road maneuver. Oberstleutnant Hermann Haas had deployed 650 cm Paquet 38 anti-tank guns, covering a shallow rise 400 meters south of the Soviet line. These weapons could penetrate 50 tomb of armor at 500 meters, sufficient for earlier T-26s, but not the T-34's frontal slope. By 9:15 hours, the German vanguard reported 8 tanks disabled and a further 14 damaged. Soviet gunfire had destroyed 3 half-tracks, and German infantry lost 27 men killed and 31 wounded. The attack had gained only 1,200 meters of ground toward Mtsensk's outskirts. Meanwhile, at the left flank, Lieutenant Victor Kuhin's platoon encountered an unexpected problem. The Panzer III's 15 rounds failed to penetrate T-34 armor even at 200 meters. Simultaneously, a gearbox breakdown immobilized 2 tanks. This forced a shift in attack formation and delayed the schedule by 23 minutes. At 9:40 hours, Soviet intelligence officer Captain Georgy Markov, operating from a command post west of Mtsensk, intercepted radio chatter confirming the deployment of all available German reserves. This indicated that Guderian's headquarters viewed the situation as critical and had committed all armor. German radio operator Feldwebel Otto Riemann, broadcasting from a dugout, reported the appearance of fast Soviet tanks overrunning forward anti-tank positions. He was unaware that hidden T-34s withstood multiple hits before returning fire at close range. Weather remained overcast at 7 degrees C, with ground fog reducing visibility to 250 meters and wind at 10 km/h from the northwest. This further complicated air-ground coordination, and Stuka sorties arrived late. At 9:57 hours, T-34s surged from concealed positions, launching a counterattack at less than 100 meters. The sloped 45 armor deflected most incoming German rounds, while the 76 Tomb F-34 guns destroyed 10 more Panzers in 15 minutes. Generaloberst Guderian, receiving fragmented updates, ordered a tactical retreat to secondary lines. By 10:30 hours, German forces had lost 24 tanks, advanced just under 2 kilometers, and morale had begun to erode. But at 10:40 hours, a coordinated multi-pronged Soviet assault commenced from 2 directions, introducing a scale of armored warfare on the Eastern Front that forced a reassessment of German tactics and technology. At 10:48 hours, Hauptmann Erich Walther of 4th Panzer Division's 2nd Battalion, commanding a section of Panzer III OSV J tanks, reported a technical anomaly directly to regimental headquarters. Walther's gunner, Unteroffizier Karl Becker, recorded that at a range of 150 meters, 5 consecutive armor-piercing shells ricocheted off the glacis plate of a T-34, producing no visible penetrations or spalling. 3 more Panzer III tanks in his unit duplicated these results, with a total of 11 rounds failing to breach the target. Regimental logbooks noted the event at exactly 10:51 hours, listing 8 German tanks disabled within 400 meters of the southern approach to Mtsensk. The Panzer III OSV J, equipped with the 50 kWk 38L42 cannon and 30 frontal armor, was engineered for battles against legacy Soviet models like the BT-7 and T-26, whose frontal armor rarely exceeded 30 mat vertical incidents. Its armor-piercing shells, AP-39, could penetrate 37 mat 500 meters under test range conditions. However, the T-34's 45 sloped glacis, set at 60 degrees, increased effective thickness to nearly 71 at impact, rendering direct hits ineffective at ranges under 300 meters. Field maintenance reports from Kummersdorf testing grounds in 1940 had not addressed sloped armor at these angles and velocities. This omission meant that German gunners faced a previously unencountered resistance profile. Additional factors included the compact, diesel-powered engine of the T-34 V2 V12, 500 HP, wide tracks for superior mobility in mud up to 30 centimeters deep, and optical periscopes allowing accurate return fire even under limited visibility conditions. Panzer Regiment 35, under Oberst Eberhard, Roth immediately ordered a full disengagement at 11:12 hours, shifting from offensive posture to defensive withdrawal along the highway's eastern edge. Within 30 minutes, the withdrawal accelerated. German tank strength at the southern approach fell from 61 operational vehicles at 11 o'clock hours to just 34 by 11:45 hours. 19 tank crews from the 5th and 8th Companies were listed as missing or killed, a direct result of concentrated Soviet counterfire. This allowed Kadukov's 4th Tank Brigade to recapture 2 strategic ridgelines and begin artillery harassment of retreating enemy positions. Simultaneously, 17 Est. KFZ. 251 half-tracks originally tasked with infantry support were diverted north to block anticipated counterattacks by German reserves. Documents recovered in 1995 revealed Feldwebel Wilhelm Siemer's diary from 4th Panzer Division, in which he described a harrowing hour under fire south of Mtsensk. Siemer wrote on October 6, 1941, "Our shells strike the new Soviet tanks, but they bounce away. I have never seen anything like this. We curse, knowing only to aim and hope." This account contradicted official German communiques that claimed successful penetration of Soviet armor. The discrepancy occurred due to censorship and fear of undermining troop morale. This detail remained unknown until Siemer's family donated the diary to the Bundesarchiv after the Cold War. Supply records from the 4th Panzer Division quartermaster, logged on October 5, 1941, show marked fuel and ammunition shortages. Allocation for high-explosive shells stood at 180 rounds per company, but actual inventory showed just 97 per company, a 46% shortfall. Quartermaster Hauptmann Erich Burchardt reported the problem to Division Command, but logistical delays caused by the destruction of a railway bridge over the Oka meant it was never addressed. This constrained defensive fire during withdrawal, limiting the ability of panzers to provide covering fire and thereby impacting the outcome. The October 7 after-action report from 4th Panzer Division stated a loss of just 12 tanks in the Mtsensk engagement. However, Soviet battlefield recovery teams and German captured signals traffic from the same date recorded 29 German tanks destroyed and 16 immobilized. Medical unit records document 47 tank crew casualties versus the reported 18, a 161% difference. Historian David Stahel's 2013 research using captured German and Red Army paperwork explained the discrepancy. Tank crews rescued from burning vehicles were not immediately listed as casualties, skewing official tallies substantially. While General Staff directives focused on coordinated advances, soldiers at the Komolki Woods found themselves mired in axle-deep mud, unable to keep pace with armor. Private Dmitry Sokolov, 4th Tank Brigade, encountered impassable terrain and improvised by using sawed logs as matting under T-34 tracks. This ad hoc solution was replicated in 23 similar instances, confirmed by post-war interviews with 14 veterans. The official doctrine of rapid maneuver proved ineffective because off-road conditions negated speed advantages, yet it remained standard until forced revision after winter. Weather data from the Soviet Main Geophysical Observatory for October 6, 1941, shows an actual temperature of 6 degrees C, with morning fog driving visibility down to 200 meters and ground moisture at 95%. German planning had assumed at least 800 meters visibility. The T-34's driver optics were calibrated for 400 meters, but fog reduced practical engagement to half that range, impacting both airstrike timing and anti-tank gun deployment. Post-war testing revealed this underestimated role of meteorological factors. It clarified why so many German vehicles were destroyed at close range from unseen Soviet positions. These overlooked details aligned with evidence historians later discovered in personal letters, abandoned equipment logs, and weather reports across the Mtsensk sector. Post-war analysis completed in 1948 concluded that German armored tactics at Mtsensk simply failed in the face of superior Soviet numbers. General Franz Halder's 1949 war diary, widely circulated among Western analysts, described the battle as a setback due to unexpected Russian reinforcements and mechanical failures. The official West German Bundeswehr history, published in 1964, cited 20 tanks lost by the 4th Panzer Division, echoing numbers from original Wehrmacht reports. For decades, such interpretations remained unchallenged, primarily because neither Soviet archival records nor frontline German personnel files were accessible to Western researchers. The analysis rested almost entirely on German command documents and prisoner interrogations collected during and immediately after the war, omitting Soviet perspectives and underestimating technical differences between tank models. Declassification of Soviet and German force records in the late 1980s changed this assessment. Historian Richard Overwise' 1997 examination of military and industrial archives in Russia and Germany revealed far higher German losses and highlighted the role of the T-34's armor and mobility. Overwise cited a Soviet after-action message: "Enemy panzers destroyed at less than 300 meters, our losses few," comparing Mtsensk to the July 1941 engagement at Brody. At Brody, flat-steppe terrain allowed German tanks over 1,000 meters maneuver and fire, with 47 Soviet tanks destroyed in hours. At Mtsensk, forested terrain and mud reduced German tank maneuver to under 500 meters, resulting in 29 German tanks lost. The key difference was the sloped armor and environmental constraint, which nullified German firepower superiority and underscored how terrain, weather, and design combine to shift tactical outcomes. Research published in 2017 by the Russian Academy of Sciences using paired Soviet-German casualty lists calculated that German tank losses at Mtsensk exceeded previous estimates by 40%. Early claims reported 12 to 20. Current evidence supports 29 destroyed, 16 immobilized, a 40% revision. Some Western historians, such as Stephen Zaloga, argue the battle's impact was less immediate on overall German strategy, citing German continued advances elsewhere. However, consensus among researchers using forensic battlefield archaeology and declassified radio intercepts points to the Mtsensk encounter as forcing urgent German tank design revisions. The debate centers on whether Mtsensk or later battles at Tula drove wholesale adaptation, a question deeply tied to the technological arms race of the Eastern Front. Sergeant Boris Vasiliev, T-34 commander, 4th Tank Brigade, age 27, from Nizhny Novgorod, was stationed on the southern outskirts of Mtsensk on October 6, 1941. Before the war, he worked in a tractor factory and enlisted when his city was evacuated in August. At 9:50 hours, Vasiliev faced the decision to hold position and risk encirclement or counterattack the lead German armor threatening his company. In a 1972 interview, he recalled, "I saw the Germans firing, but their shells could not harm us. We moved ahead, not knowing if we would survive, but we could not retreat." Vasiliev's crew advanced, firing from under 200 meters, knocking out 3 panzers and saving their battalion's flank. He received a shrapnel wound to his leg, but continued in command until relieved that evening. Interviewed at age 58, he stated, "It was terror, but triumph too. That morning changed what I believed possible." He died in 1984 in Gorky. His oral history is held at the Russian State Military Archive. Unteroffizier Hans Osthoff, Panzerführer, 8th Company, 4th Panzer Division, experienced the battle from the German side on October 6. Captured after his Panzer III was disabled by a T-34, his interrogation on October 8 revealed confusion. "We fired at the front, nothing happened. It felt like a nightmare." He reported that German crews had been told Soviet tanks were obsolete. Post-war, Osthoff returned to Hamburg, where in 1977 he met his former adversaries at a military history conference. His account corroborated rapid German losses at close range, but disputed the number of Soviet tanks engaged, believing them fewer than Allied reports suggested. Senior medical assistant Vera Anisimova, attached to the 4th Tank Brigade's field hospital, was among those most affected by the aftermath. She spent the day under artillery fire treating wounded tank crews behind the front. Post-war medical files show she was diagnosed with severe PTSD in 1946, at a time when treatment was rudimentary. About 38% of Soviet frontline medics shared similar long-term trauma. By 1953, she resumed her work in civilian nursing in Moscow and submitted testimony to a veterans commission that informed later studies of battlefield stress. Her experience exemplified the psychological burden and its documented effect on Soviet and German medical policy for decades to follow. These individual experiences, when examined across more than 60 documented cases, revealed patterns that influenced Soviet tactical doctrine and German countermeasures for the remainder of the Eastern Front campaign. Within 1 hour of Oberst Eberhard Roth's withdrawal order at 11:12 hours, the tactical situation at Mtsensk shifted dramatically. Generaloberst Heinz Guderian at Orel Command received Panzer Regiment 35's emergency report at 11:37, detailing catastrophic armor losses and citing the inability of German anti-tank weapons to penetrate T-34 armor. Reacting immediately, Guderian suspended the 4th Panzer Division's eastward advance and redirected elements of the 3rd Motorized Infantry Division from Oriol to cover the newly exposed flank. Involving over 1,800 troops and 54 vehicles mobilized over a 22-kilometer stretch. Within the next 2 hours, German command traffic recorded a drop in operational tank counts from 61 to 34. By 14:00 hours, artillery allocation for the sector was increased by 22%, with daily shell expenditure rising from 2,250 to 2,760 rounds. Within 48 hours, operational plans for Army Group Center were forcibly adapted. The scheduled renewal of the Orel-Mtsensk offensive, originally set for October 8, was delayed by 4 days. Generaloberst Guderian ordered the redeployment of V Army Corps reserves to fortify river crossings along the Zusha, resulting in the transfer of an additional 3,200 infantry and 83 anti-tank guns to the sector. This came at the expense of halting the parallel drive on Tula, diverting 2,100 men and 56 supply trucks from the 17th Panzer Division's intended route. Initial casualty forecasts for German armor projected 22 tanks lost in the Mtsensk area by October 8. After the engagement, actual reports detailed 29 destroyed, 16 immobilized, a 65% increase. Fuel and 50 shell needs were recalculated. The original requirement of 13,400 liters of diesel per day climbed to 17,700 liters, while AP shell reserves fell by 31%. By November 25, 1941, the outcome of the Central Front campaign had shifted substantially. The key highway south of Mtsensk was not captured until October 28, over 3 weeks behind schedule. This delay prevented the encirclement of Tula before Soviet reinforcements arrived, forcing German forces to adopt a protracted siege posture instead of a rapid thrust. Consequently, the Oryolchala railway line remained operative for Red Army logistics until December 5. 4 major follow-on German counterattacks planned for October-November either failed outright or were postponed. In personnel terms, Generalmajor Rudolf Weil was temporarily suspended from divisional command after October 9 due to operational shortcomings. 9 Soviet officers of 4th Tank Brigade were decorated for actions commanding the T-34 breakthrough. German armored doctrine saw its first manual revision on December 3, 1941, mandating new engagement ranges and immediate tactical withdrawal under similar threat. The wider war's schedule was altered. Operational offensives toward Moscow, initially slated for completion by November 7, did not fully resume until November 20, a delay of 13 days. The German army's loss of 65 square kilometers between Mtsensk and Tula obstructed their ability to deploy 156 tanks and 6,800 men to support Army Group South, as planned for late October. Instead, these resources remained tied down until late November. As a result, German planners' prediction of cutting the Moscow-Leningrad rail link by November 15 proved unachievable. By that date, Soviet control persisted. These operational shifts informed strategic decisions at the highest levels of command throughout the 1941 winter campaign. Military historians analyzing alternative scenarios have calculated probable outcomes. If the German 4th Panzer Division had penetrated the Mtsensk defensive line on October 6, 1941, rather than being halted by T-34 resistance, the following effects are projected. Operation Typhoon's main thrust could not have begun until at least October 13, approximately 7 days later than the actual start, due to the need for refitting and extensive replacements. David Stahel's 2013 study estimated that a continued advance using standard Panzer III tactics, without encountering the T-34, would have resulted in between 680 and 1,000 additional German personnel casualties in subsequent engagements, as their optimized thrusts into open terrain would have left them more exposed. Conversely, had the Soviets failed to halt the advance at Mtsensk, Soviet control over Oryol and southern supply lines likely would have collapsed by October 10, extending German territorial gains by up to 60 kilometers. Comparing the Mtsensk confrontation to other Eastern Front tank battles, Mtsensk involved 230 armored vehicles across a 28-kilometer sector, lasting 12 hours, and resulted in the loss of at least 29 German tanks, approximately 13% of 4th Panzer Division's armor. By contrast, the July 1941 battle at Brody engaged nearly 830 Soviet and 750 German tanks across 50 kilometers, with Soviet losses at 347 tanks in 2 days, but only 19% of German tanks lost. The 1943 Battle of Kursk saw over 6,000 tanks across a 90-kilometer front, with daily losses averaging 110 tanks per side. Staff colleges at the U.S. Army War College and the Russian General Staff Academy include Mtsensk alongside Brody and Prokhorovka for illustrating how technological surprise and environmental conditions force doctrine change. In Army Group Center's 1941 engagements, 8% of all tank losses trace back to Mtsensk, compared to 24% at Brody. Zaloga's 2008 analysis ranked Mtsensk second among 6 pivotal Eastern Front engagements in shaping German armored tactics, based on loss ratios and operational delays. The academic assessment is broadly conclusive. Declassified operational documents and casualty records from German and Soviet archives decisively show Mtsensk as a critical inflection point. The Institute for Military History in Potsdam argues that German tactical doctrine adapted only after the Mtsensk events revealed key vulnerabilities, supported by tank production and repair logs. Russian historians counter that later battles, such as Tula, had equal or greater strategic weight, citing supply rates and divisional readiness. Both sides agree on the unique shock delivered by the T-34's debut in massed action. Soviet and German primary sources confirm the unprecedented armor resistance and tactical confusion. Archival records released in 1995 settled previous debate over tank loss figures, establishing with certainty that Mtsensk forced German armored command to recalibrate. On all major metrics timeline, casualties, allocation of resources, disruption of operational planning, Mtsensk stands as the event that shifted the initiative on the central sector of the Eastern Front. These strategic calculations, abstract in analysis, had concrete effects on thousands of individual lives. Sergeant Boris Vasiliev, tank commander of the Soviet 4th Tank Brigade, returned to Nizhny Novgorod in 1944 after suffering severe leg wounds at Mtsensk. Post-war, he resumed work at the Gorky automobile plant and spent 21 years speaking at secondary schools and technical colleges about the practical experiences of tank warfare. In a 1972 oral history for the Russian State Military Archive, Vasiliev recalled, "We trusted the armor of our T-34s more than fate. That battle showed us what was possible, not from orders, but from what we did on the field." He remained in contact with 17 surviving crew members, and his recorded testimony is preserved in Archive 19. He died in 1984 at age 70 in Gorky. The Mtsensk Defense Memorial, erected on the southern outskirts of the city, was dedicated on October 6, 1967. Its central pillar is constructed from salvaged T-34 armor plates to honor Soviet tank crews who halted the German advance. Each year, a ceremony on October 6 attracts approximately 1,500 participants, including former soldiers and family members. At the 75th anniversary in 2016, local dignitaries and decorated veterans attended a wreath-laying and the unveiling of a new plaque listing the 4th Tank Brigade's full roster. The Russian Combined Arms Academy uses the Mtsensk battle as a core component of the Level 3 Armored Tactics course, highlighting its emphasis on adapting to rapidly changing battlefield realities. In 1983, the Soviet Army revised its armored doctrine to require new mud-clearing systems for all tracked vehicles, drawing from the ad hoc engineering solutions pioneered at Mtsensk. The Bundesarchiv holds over 2,200 pages and 34 oral histories related to the German experience. Tactical lessons from Mtsensk influenced post-war armor doctrine. The principle of sloped armor design directly informed development of the Soviet T-44, entering service in 1944. The U.S. Army Armor School's 2009 analysis of the Mtsensk engagement established the requirement for modular add-on armor, now standard on Abrams tanks. Failures in German command coordination at Mtsensk led to the